Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. Today I have a wonderful guest on, and it is Angela Della Fiora Ford. She was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. She received a bachelor's degree in political science, and for over 32 years, she had worked for the intelligence community in Washington, D.C. The Defense Intelligence Agency hired Angela in 1986 to participate in the Stargate Psychic Phenomenon Program, where she worked as a remote viewer for 9 years. Her groundbreaking work in remote viewing and identifying spies using psi phenomena has helped advance the understanding of human perception and has been recognized as a valuable intelligence collection tool in national security. Angela retired from federal service in 2010, but in October of 2024, she was inducted into the National Security Agency's Spy Museum. Angela currently works with Dr. Ed May on projects at the Laboratories of Fundamental Research in Mountain View, California. She also teaches at the Monroe Institute in Faber, Virginia. Welcome, wonderful Angela Ford. I am so happy you are here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I'm just looking forward to my time with you.
Yay. Angela, I wanted to first understand how you first discovered your ESP or extrasensory abilities.
I can remember as a child. Oh, I had a lot of out-of-body experiences whenever I was a child. I mean, I was very, very young, and I would go out of body. So, and then I can remember having dreams that were premonitions that sometimes they would come true. And I can remember being young and I would talk to my mother about these things and she would listen. But sometimes people, whenever they say, they saw Uncle Harry and he happens to be dead, how the grown-ups will say, well, don't talk like that or don't ever say that again. But my mother didn't. But
Yeah.
my mother was very interested in ESP and psychic readers, and she always had a lot of literature in the house. She had a lot of Edgar Casey books. She bought an encyclopedia of all of psychic information, and we still have it. It's a big, a black book with all, they talk about out of body and magic. So I guess she had a strong interest in it, and she believed in reincarnation. So as a child growing up, it it was there, but I thought she was weird. But when I was brought on into the psychic program and I was being interviewed, a General Stubblebine asked me, he said, "How were you brought up?" And I said, they were not strict, but my mother was into this. She had the paraphernalia hanging in the house. And he said that allowed you to it allowed me to be able to explore it. If it was there for me, if I wanted it or not.
That's so perfect. I might even have that same encyclopedia you're referring to.
I took some books out of out now. The books are still in my mother's house. She's not
Okay.
there anymore, but my brothers live there. And I do have some of the books here that even when I went home, I was like, I can't believe she did this. She bought
Oh,
this.
that's so great. It's great to have a supportive family on that. So your mother was psychic. You mentioned you have a twin sister named Louise. Was she psychic as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. What about your father? What about your other family member?
Um, well, we always, well, I thought, see, my mother didn't know she was psychic because she had a strong interest in it.
Mhm.
But as a kid, as growing up, I mean, she never said I'm psychic, or we never said my mother's psychic. She had an interest in it. But
Yeah.
when I graduated from college in 1976, I wasn't doing anything. So I took a ESP class at night. It was one of those university night classes where you pay like
Yeah.
$35. So I
Yeah.
took it, but I had to quit because I got a job at night and I had to start working at night. Plus I needed to make money because I was coming down to Washington, D.C. to start working for the FBI. So I had quit so I could start making money. And but when I came down to Washington, D.C., it must have been years later. My mother had called me up and she said her and her friends wanted to take a class one fall. They didn't know what to do. And I said, take the class that I took. The man's name was Dr. Bordis. I said, take his ESP class. And
Yeah.
she did. And I think that's when she opened up because she was good at psychometry, taking people's objects,
Yeah.
watches or rings, and
Yeah.
telling them about whoever owned it. So that really opened her up. And so she was very good. She was very good. And then I had studied from a man by the name of Fred Mansbridge in Alexandria, Virginia, who also traveled to Pennsylvania and gave classes. And my mother took classes from him and she said she was very good. So she was psychic. Now, I thought that it was on my mother's side because then there was my sister and my mother, and then I had two cousins and an aunt that eventually opened up, and they were psychic. So it's probably genetic.
Uh-huh.
That's what I was told, genetic. But I found out years later that my grandfather on my father's side, I'm Italian, and what I found out was before he came to the United States, he traveled through Italy and he walked through, no, he not Italy, he walked through Europe. He traveled through Europe, Sweden, in different
Mhm.
countries, and that the way he would make a living was he had a tray, and on the tray was a bird and a deck of tarot cards, and he would give people readings. So
Oh,
I guess I got it from both sides.
wow.
I
Okay.
guess it was a double whammy.
Yeah, lucky you. Regarding your path into the government's remote viewing Stargate program, did you seek that out or did they find you?
Well, it was a special access program, so you had to be read on to it. So I was working for the FBI, then I worked for
Yeah.
Army Intelligence, and I didn't find out about and I started working in, 1978, 79. I didn't find out that they had this program until 1984.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I didn't know they had it. And then um Army intelligence had a command, and it was run by a general. And in the military, you people rotate. They don't stay in one place. So a general may have been ahead of this Army intelligence command, but after 2 or 3 years, he leaves. Then
Yeah.
another man comes in and he stays 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, and then he leaves.
Hmm.
So this was going on all of this time, but there was one general that came in, I believe, in maybe 1982 or 83, but he had an interest when a general came in and he became the commander of Army intelligence, he inherited the remote viewing program that was put there by it was okay by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with congressional approval. So whoever came in, they inherited the program.
Right.
Whether they believed it or not, whether they liked it or not, it was part of their command.
Uh-huh.
Now, one man came in and his name was General Stubblebine. And I don't know when he came in, if it was 82 or 83, but General Stubblebine came from the Army Training Command. And General Stubblebine was interested in more than remote viewing. He was interested in spoon bending. He had Colonel Alexander that worked for him, and Colonel Alexander would give demonstrations of walking on fire. So their mentality was that they wanted soldiers to say that, you're more than your body, and they encouraged people to use that sixth sense. So
Yeah.
it was at that time I had found out about the program because
Yeah.
he was more verbal or more saying who's ever interested in this to go and see him. And that's how I found out about it.
Okay, so you approached him.
I guess in a way people knew him. Yeah, I would say
Oh, okay. Well,
that.
that's
I guess I
perfect.
seeked it out because I found out it existed.
Yeah. Well, perfect. And then I'm curious. I know you had mentioned in previous interviews that the government used to use Myers-Briggs, the personality testing, to determine the best fit, people with the best fit of the Stargate program. What Myers-Briggs personality type are you?
I'm the one that like the least percentage. It was intuitive feeling, but
INFJ?
INFJ.
INFJ, judging, and then think, sorry. Yeah, feeling and then judging. Yeah, I am an INFJ as well, so I understand you.
Yeah, like we're the least understood because there's not many of us.
That's right.
But
That,
um, but that really wasn't a good test to see if everybody. Now that's how the military tested. They felt that they had this psychology test, and but actually the scientists at Stanford Research Institute
yeah,
and Rhine and Rhine or the Duke University in Princeton, they were testing much better. This was very rudimentary. Plus
yeah,
the
yeah,
military. They always felt that the person that had the perceptive personality was a better remote viewer. And so if anybody had came up with that perceptive personality, they'd, oh yeah, they're gonna make, oh yeah, they're gonna make a great remote viewer. But what they found out was they did a test with airline pilots, and the pilots that were perceptive, they would test them and they would go into the cockpit. And whenever they were to understand how the worked, they would pick up a manual and they would go, they would follow the manual on how the plane is, how you're supposed to operate this plane.
yeah,
Then, when they brought the judging people in, the judging people didn't pay attention to the manual and they were just doing, looking around, looking at that, looking at that. They were doing their own thing. And what they found out years later was that if the plane got in trouble, it was the judging personality that could think how to get the plane out of trouble. It wasn't the perceptive people. And then what they found out in remote viewing that the perceptive personality, the reason they thought they were good was because they followed the rules. So they were showing good results in a short period of time, and the judging person wasn't paying attention and they were kind of feeling themselves around, and then all of a sudden when they got it and they were good.
yeah.
That didn't so that really wasn't it wasn't a good way to measure. And
No,
I
it,
don't think the scientists appreciated it.
yeah, they use it in the corporate environments, you know. But and I want to say that I saw a Joe McMoneagle interview where they based a lot of the choices on those who had sort of intuitively navigated danger.
Oh yeah, he was the front man. He was in
Right,
Vietnam. He was
right.
the front man. And that if you're the front man and you're going out to battle, it's just statistic wise, you don't, you're not going to last.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're always the ones that get killed first. Well, here, Joe always came back. So then once somebody once somebody has a track record of always coming back, then everybody wants to go with them because and I think they watched Joe and I think instead of turning right, he'd turn left. They
right.
had that sense. And I think that's how they identified Joe.
Yeah, well, that makes total sense. So many listeners right now may not be aware of the concept of remote viewing. So do you mind defining it?
Remote viewing is nothing more than ESP.
Hmm.
And there were two scientists that studied at Stanford Research Institute, and they were studying psychic phenomenon. And so they were watching people. I guess they would give them put a picture in an envelope, and then and then the person was supposed to access and describe the picture in the envelope, and then they would do statistics. The scientists love statistics, and the higher the statistics, then it wasn't by chance. But how they got its name is the two scientists were studying Chinese children in China. They were watching these videos of the Chinese children and what and how they were performing psychic tasks.
Mhm.
And when you interpreted what the Chinese children said in English, what they were saying was, I remotely view, or I view remotely, or I remote. So that's, I think that's how the word came up, remote viewing. But it's nothing more than ESP, because when you do a remote viewing session, you could get the picture, which is precognition. You could get the feeling, which is the sensation. You don't know what's going to happen. Something happens that enables you to at least try to access and describe that picture. They call it remote viewing. I think it's nothing more than ESP.
Yeah,
It's just basic as that.
I agree with you. So describe your experience as a civilian, meaning non-military, in the Stargate program.
Well, I went in because I was already actually I was already psychic. I had developed automatic writing. Um, and actually I may have been doing a little bit of readings. It was the start of my psychic readings, although I probably wasn't charging, but so I
Yeah.
went in with the abilities. And when I went in, they knew I had the channeling, or they knew I went, and I was told I had a bad habit that I had to do what they said, which was remote viewing. And then there were these methodologies, and that you had to follow these methodologies.
Mhm.
So I didn't argue. I worked for military, and I know what it's like if you don't follow the rules. I mean, your life can become really miserable. So I wanted to be there. So they said, you have a bad habit. So I said, okay, I have a bad habit. So um they trained me in something called extended remote viewing. And extended remote viewing is nothing more than the silver mind control. I don't
Right,
know.
right. Totally familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was waiting for my clearances to be once I was offered the job, my clearances had to be passed from Army to the Defense Intelligence Agency, because the general who was the head of the remote viewers, he retired.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the Army was losing its support at the Pentagon at the Joint Chief of Staff levels. So Defense Intelligence Agency just came in and picked up that went to Congress and said, we'll
Uh,
take the viewers, because they were strong. The Defense Intelligence Agency was strong on the research side. They were doing a lot of research, and they went to Congress and said, don't dismantle it, just give it to us. And so it took about a year to move. It took 80, the general retired in 1984, 85, they did the change, and I was in 1986. But because it was in another agency and not Army, my clearances had to be passed. So I
right.
was waiting for my clearances to be passed, and I just picked up the Silver Mind Control. I said, I'm going to read this book since I'm going to be a psychic. And actually,
Mhm.
that's what it was. You kind of put yourself in a self-meditative state,
Uh-huh.
and you just see a picture, and then you come back and you describe the picture. You can either write a report, you can draw, you can do both.
Right, right.
And the silver mind, it kind of teaches, the silver mind control kind of tells you, well, turn on the TV, and what do you see? And then when you're done, you turn off the TV. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, anyone can get the book.
Yeah, it's like
And
$14,
yeah,
$12. So
yeah.
that's what I did. And that's what I did. And then about a year and a half after I was there, management changed. And so
Mhm.
some people retired and new people came in, and they didn't care if I did the channeling or not. So I did the automatic writing, and actually it was good at locating. It was good at finding things.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna talk more about that. So, have you ever received, or excuse me, experienced a remote viewing target that actually pushed back or resisted, or who was aware that you were viewing them? Never experienced that. Okay.
No, because no, because we at the
Mhm.
time, I guess the only people that were using remote viewing like we were was the ex-Soviet Union.
Oh, okay.
And when we were spying on them, we weren't spying on the remote view. We didn't care who the remote viewers were. We needed information, like there's a building there. What's inside that building? What are they doing? What are they building? A lot of the ex Soviet Union, we were looking at technology. What are they building? What are they doing?
Oh, I see.
So it's not like you're in a remote viewer. They don't have any stat. I mean, if I'm going to remote view a person, I remote viewed Gorbachev, his minister, his cabinet. I'm not going to care about no lowly remote viewer. But we I wasn't I mean, our time differences were, I mean, we had a time difference. I was probably remote viewing tasks, some things in the Soviet Union while the psychics were sleeping. And they could have been looking at our stuff while we were sleeping. There was none of that.
Oh, okay.
There was none of
Okay.
that.
That's
And
good.
there was and even if there was, I mean, that really wasn't the mission, and it wouldn't have done any good anyway. We were after other information that was more important.
Oh, I got you. And then can you share a moment from that time when your remote viewing had produced something especially surprising or significant results?
Well, I guess that was the joy. Well, I worked hostages. I did the American. There were hostages in Lebanon. If during that time, the
Yeah.
Hezbollah. We had Terry Anderson, Terry Waite. They had uh, kidnapped Higgins, which was a U.S. Marine. I think that was the way and then there was the Charles Jordan case, the
Mhm.
customs guy
Oh,
that
right.
we
You're right.
found.
Yes. Do you mind? Can you go a little bit into how you located the hostages and just a little bit more information on that? And then the Lowell versus Level.
Well, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what happened was when I first was allowed to do my channeling, my automatic writing,
Uh-huh.
um, my boss and I, we just went over to work because we wanted to see did the methodology work or were we going to try it. So the first target he had Terry Anderson, who was in the target. And I don't know what I said, but I said that, the man was in another country, but he didn't really live there. That, he was under stress or duress, but he would eventually return to the he would be fine. I didn't know who it was. So it ended up being Terry Anderson. Well, that was pretty good. So my boss said, we're going to keep doing this.
Mm.
Well, we got the names of these other hostages, and he'd say, "No, where's this one, or where's that one?" And then we went into the health statuses of. So I can remember there was one hostage. His name was Pohil. I said he had a sore throat. Well, here he came out with throat cancer.
Oh.
Now,
Mm.
this is what was happening. This was during the 1988, 1989 period.
Hmm.
The U.S. intelligence community had no way of collecting information on the hostages in Lebanon because it's a very mountainous area. So you couldn't get signals down there. You couldn't get the AWACS planes down there to collect signals to come back and interpret it. And you couldn't get imagery. The only way you could get information were spies on the ground. And I think Clinton took the spies, he wanted them home because it was a very dangerous area. So we had hostages in there along with other NATO countries.
Hmm.
But there was no collection method. So when I kind of came along and we're saying, well, we think they're here, we think they're there, the analysts grabbed it. So they started to take my information to the Israeli embassy at night. And then the Israeli embassy would call it in and to the Israeli Defense Force, and they would go out and look. Now, one time I said that Terry Anderson was in the Bekaa Valley, and they said, oh, he would never be in the Bekaa Valley, but he was. They
Uh-huh.
got a report later that he was. So then one Sunday, we got a call, and there was Lieutenant Colonel Higgins was a Marine officer, and he wanted to go to Lebanon, and they told him don't go. It was too dangerous for him because whatever he worked, the terrorists knew him, and he was picked up. He was kidnapped immediately, and so we were called in on a weekend to try to find Higgins because it was very dangerous for him. So we went in and they asked where he was, and they showed me a picture, and I said that I said he's right there, and showed this picture, and of course the men in the I'm doing channeling, and they don't like it because it's a
Yeah.
bad habit. So
Yes.
well, there's nothing there. How can he be there? There's nothing but woods.
Mhm.
What do you, I mean, what do you answer? I just said he's there. So when the analyst came in, the analyst said, but that's old imagery. That's you don't know what's there now. So shortly after we worked that, the hostage, the terrorists, sometimes they let people go out of goodwill. So they released a hostage named Cordes, and Cordes was German. So they let him come home to Germany, and our analyst went over there to debrief him, went to Rhine Mine to debrief him, and he asked Cordes, he said, "Where's Higgins?" And Cordes pointed to the same spot that I pointed to. And the guy said, but there's nothing there. And Cordes said, but they built something, and they built a shed, and he's in there. So he was where I said he was.
So was this a case where you were doing automatic writing and you just opened up, you asked the question, I'm guessing, and then you were just instructed to write down the location, right?
Yeah, or they would ask, where were yeah, it was channeling. It was
Yeah.
it was more direct than it was just very direct. I'm doing automatic write. It's like dowsing. You
Right.
it's
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
thing, instead of using the pendulum, I was using a pen. It's quick and it's
Oh.
fast. You can't
Mhm.
there's no him and haw, you just do it. It's there, or whatever. You can't even think about it.
Well, kind of if you're dowsing, right, you have to douse with a map. So you've got to have somewhere on the map, right, a starting point. But using a pen and automatic writing, having it, I guess, download in your head, and you're actually writing out the word,
Yeah, yeah, we're writing
it
out the
feels a little
word.
more advanced to me. I know it's of the same ESP, but it seems more exact.
It's verbal. It's very
Yeah,
verbal.
yeah. It's pretty incredible.
And it's verbal, where the other ones are more when you're asked to access and describe something, your mind opens up so you can see it.
Uh-huh.
But if you're asked where is something, your mind has to close up and say it's there.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
incredible.
mean, when you do a search and somebody wants to know where somebody is, if you did it like in the way that they did pictures, you would say, "Oh, well, you know what? There's a tree and there's a river, and that's where the person is." Well, a tree, that's where the person is. Well, a tree and a river can be anywhere in the world. So
Okay.
to search, you have to be on it.
Yeah.
It's
So
like yeah.
I'm sorry, dear. Go ahead.
So your mind kind of closes up.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so what would you describe as your most difficult target that you ever had to view?
I don't know, because they were all hard because I never knew anything, and they were
They were
all
all
hard.
hard. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't. you just kind of get tasked and you just have to go with it and you don't know anything. And you
Right.
don't know. And you mean sometimes you feel good and you think, wow, maybe I did good. And then you do really bad. And then sometimes you walk out so confused and you're like, what happened? And then it's really good. So it's hard to gauge. I mean, it's hard. It's very, very difficult. That's why when somebody says, oh, yeah, I'm good and I get 99%, I'm like, good for you, but I doubt it.
Now, I really want you to share with the listeners about the level versus low, because that's pretty incredible.
Well, we were having success with the hostages, and then we were having slight success with some other targets.
Hmm.
So, so everybody was getting comfortable with me finding things in people. Well, Charles Jordan, he was on the 10 most wanted list. He was a customs agent that went bad. I guess, did he keep the money? He didn't give up the drugs. He kept the money. He was on the take. And there was a TV program called The 10 Most Wanted,
Hmm.
and he was on the 10 Most Wanted list. Now, because he was on the 10 Most Wanted list, this was an unclassified case. So when it came to us, it was unclassified. It didn't come through classified channels. A customs high official talked with Dr. Verona, who was a high official at the Defense Intelligence Agency, and said, do you think your people can find this man? So I went into the room with my boss and with the secretary because she always kept notes. And I said he was in Lowell, Wyoming. And I said Lowell. Well, my boss was born in Lowell, Massachusetts. And he said, are you sure you don't mean Lowell, Massachusetts? And I said, no, it's Lowell, Wyoming, because I was getting, like the Wild West, the cowboys, the horses. I wasn't getting a Massachusetts type feeling. So I said, no, it's Wyoming. And my boss said, and my secretary said that she said Wyoming. So my boss said, well, I don't know of any Lowell, Wyoming. Well, we didn't either. So there was a book there. There was a book and there it was an atlas where every page you turned. So he went to Wyoming and he started to turn the pages and he said, there's a Lovell, Wyoming. And I said, well, that's close enough. That has to be it. And I said, well, just say Lovell, Wyoming. And you could tell he was kind of flustered. I don't know if he believed me or not because it came out so quick and so fast. And and also too, it's the government. They want report writing. They want more information. But I knew intuitively to stop. If I go any further, I'm going to be wrong. So
Uh-huh.
he was kind of pushing a little bit for more information, and I didn't let him. Then what happened was I started getting this whole feeling of Florida and the Caribbean and the drug and that whole drug feeling. And at that point, I said, I've got to get out of here because I would change the man's location to Florida or the Caribbean. So I didn't know what was going on, but all I knew it was just better to stay with the initial information because other information started to flood in and I didn't know whether or not to trust it. So I said, I'll just say he's in Lovell, Wyoming. Well, of course, whenever the information was brought to um, the customs executive that worked for customs, everybody had Charles Jordan in the Caribbean, in Florida. And my boss said, we have one person who's very good. And this person said that he's in Lovell, Wyoming. And they said he would never be in Wyoming. He wants the warm weather. So now I would say about 3 weeks passed and maybe 3 or 4 weeks passed. And they were pushing me to work it, and I really didn't want to work it because either he's there or he isn't. What more can you say? And it's a unpopulated area. Send an FBI agent up there, start looking around. To me, I was done with it. I was, but there was one of my bosses came down from headquarters. It was Dale Graff, And I think he wanted me to write it. They were hinting around, and I thought, well, if you traveled the whole ways from DC to come down, I guess I'll do another session. So I did another session. It may have been 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe even been 5 weeks later. And I went in and they go, "Where's Charles Jordan?" And I said, "Well, if you really want him, you better go get him now because I felt like he was traveling west of Lovell, Wyoming." And I explained a hotel where he stayed. I said it was near an Indian burial ground.
Um,
Um, and so they were so happy. So they took the information and they took it to customs. And the customs man said, as we're speaking, Charles Jordan is being apprehended 100 miles west of Lovell, Wyoming. So everybody was happy. And we were like, oh my goodness, we were like, good for us. So I thought that I said, I want the reward money. And
right.
they said,
Yeah.
but we were told that there was a security guard at Yellowstone National Park that saw him, and he identified him as the fugitive. So we didn't get the credit on it. So that was that. So now this was in 1988 or 1989,
Um,
and the program had closed down in 1995. Oh, 1995. Now it's 1995. The BBC gets a hold of this case because it's an open case. It's not classified. And the BBC in England gets a hold of this case, and they travel here to the United States. And I met with them, and my boss Dale Graff, who lived 15 minutes from me at the time, met with them, and they wanted to know all about the case. Well, they came back a year later, and they did a reenactment of the case in June 1995. So I think the BBC probably found out about the case maybe like 1990, earlier 1993, but they came back and there was a reenactment done in June 1995 or 1996. Well, the custom guy was there, the customs agent was there, and my boss Dale Graff said something like, it's a shame we didn't get any credit for finding him. And the FBI agent said, "Are you kidding?" He said it was because of you that we found him. And they said we never believed he would be in Wyoming. And they said about 3 weeks after I said he was in Wyoming, he sent his mother a picture of himself to show proof of life.
yeah.
And that in the picture that I think there was a truck, they said, that had Wyoming license plates. And they said it was at that time that they started sending pictures. They just inundated that whole level area of pictures of him. The FBI was just sending pictures everywhere to police agencies, security guards, and they said it was because of me that they found him. So there I was. The program ended, years later, and that's what I found out.
It's incredible.
But
This,
that's how I guess intelligence works.
yeah. Well,
That's how it works.
I'm glad you got that credit. In your opinion, do you feel that all the information is basically out there in the ethers? That we're just kind of
I
antennas?
think,
Yeah.
but there's sometimes I always say if I can get the information, I'm going to tell you. But sometimes I can't get the information. And sometimes information's not given. And I feel that's on purpose too. So I don't know. I mean, I think that information's out there. We can tap into it. And, we can, I would say most of it. But sometimes I feel that maybe sometimes information isn't given sometimes.
Like there's still something managing it all, or there's a reason behind it.
There's a reason why you're not getting it. So
There's
that's
a
what,
reason
if I
behind it.
can get it, you'll have it. But if I can't get
Right.
it, now,
Mhm.
um, I find that when people are very private, they're very difficult. If somebody's very private, they're very difficult to read.
Right. Well, that makes total sense. Have you ever done healing work?
Yeah, I learned a little bit of healing modality, chakra balancing, auras,
Oh, okay.
balancing auras.
Yeah. Now, do you do that on animals, on humans,
Mostly
both?
you mostly humans, but I have, but I've tried it on animals, but I haven't done that much healing. My sister used to tell me I used to heal her, but I don't know how.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so, I know in previous interviews, you've mentioned you've had some out of body experiences. You also mentioned it earlier, in today's interview. So tell me, like, what did you experience with the out of body experiences?
Well, you just go out of your body. You kind of look, you can see yourself laying down. I feel like I could go through windows, I could go through doors. I had the sense of flying,
Mhm.
mostly up in the trees. Um, I can remember one time, like, I felt like I was going to the sun. Um, Sometimes, you could make I remembered one time I was just testing myself and I could see my sister. I felt like she was looking for car keys or something. And I was out of body and I asked her, I said, around this time, I think she was looking for car keys or trying to find them to go out. And then sometimes I would feel like I may have been other places. I think one time I tried to get to the sun or something, but
Uh-huh.
very, very pleasant. I'm not afraid of them and I do like them, but they're always beyond I don't have control of them. They're beyond my control. I don't have control of them.
So was this while you were awake and not asleep?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're out of body.
Yeah. So, did you have any unique dreams like often when you were growing up? Anything unusual? Did you find that things were coming out of the ceiling or the walls at you? Did you have any night terror, anything of that nature?
No.
You didn't experience that. Okay.
No, I like going out of body.
Just
I can remember levitating a couple of times too.
really.
But I think when I levitated, it was for a short while, but I think I feel something in my brain. There was a mechanism in my brain that
Mhm.
either was opened or something that allowed me to do this for a very short period of time.
Gotcha. Um, what have your ESP experiences revealed about non-locality or the interconnectedness of the universe?
Okay, ask that question again.
So, what have your experiences revealed about non-locality, or in other words, the interconnectedness of the universe? Do you want me to give you an example? So,
Yeah, and
like, non-locality would mean um, you can remote view anywhere in the world and any time, at
yeah, that's
and
true. That's
any like
true.
in the past, in the future, that sort of thing. Did you have any revelations about that at all in your experiences?
No, because I knew that you could no, because I knew you could see the past and you can see the present because the footprint's there. The future's hard to see because it can change.
I see. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, the present and the past, the footprint's there, so you can read it.
Yeah.
And but the future's a little bit hard because it can change.
Have you been tasked to do something like that to try to be the future?
Oh yeah, all the
Oh, you
time.
have. Oh, okay, got you. Now I know you've taught others to develop their intuitive skills. What is one simple practice our listeners can try?
Meditate.
Meditating.
Meditate.
Oh, okay.
I think meditating is the best thing people can do. It just opens them up. It just opens them up there. It's like their body becomes like a river. It just flows and synchronicity starts happening in your life. And when you recognize synchronicity, then you know you believe in something higher than yourself. And then things just open up. And that's what I always say, meditate.
Got
And
you.
you can also go online and get remote viewing targets, and you can meditate to try to access and describe those targets. You can go online and write in remote viewing targets. And there's two websites that I found that you can like, click on a button and there's a picture and then remote view it and then come back for your feedback. But I think meditating is the best because it gives you impressions, you can get feelings. So I think that's the best.
Hmm. Any particular kind of meditation that you would suggest, or like any length of time to do it for?
Um, I think whenever you go down and you start trying to access and describe some like a picture, it may take 3 or 4 minutes to kind of get comfortable, and
Uh,
then you start seeing impressions, and then when you stop seeing the impressions, then it's done. Because when you do these remote viewing targets, they're mostly outdoor targets. And so it's sort of like, your mind will get in there and you'll get the impression and then you just come out. There's nothing to hang around about. I mean, you get the picture or you don't. There's nothing to really, you don't have people talking. It's not, you just go in, see the picture and come out and just say, this is what I saw.
I gotcha. Are you working on any new projects? Are you writing any books? Are you teaching any upcoming
I
classes?
teach classes.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm teaching a class August 18th. I'm starting a class on September. I think it's the 17th. It's that Thursday. I just had my children's stories. I'm getting sold to Banagher
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, we were allowed two series. We're gonna do two series, and that just happened this week, last week, within
Oh,
a week.
congrats. And so the classes you're going to be teaching, is that at the Monroe?
No, I do that on Zoom. I do
Oh,
that on Zoom. They're my own classes. I teach remote viewing one, and
uh-huh.
I do remote viewing two, which is a little bit more difficult because we do military sites, um, and then we do locations. So it's a little bit more advanced, but we do the remote viewing one. Mhm.
So how would one sign up for that?
People usually email me, and my email
Uh-huh.
is Ford Angela. It's my name backwards, 04 at gmail.com.
I'll put that in the
And the
show.
classes are getting they're fun. They're just fun classes.
It sounds fun. And to be taught by Angela Ford.
I don't know, because I'm too I mean, I let people, and then I do teach at the Monroe Institute. Joe has me teaching remote viewing to the last hour.
Wow. So Joe and you in one class together?
It's his last class.
That sounds wonderful. And then do you do any personal readings for people?
Sure. And yeah,
You
and
do.
it's through my email.
So same way to reach you through your email.
Yes.
Perfect. Angela, I really, really want to thank you
Oh, thank you.
for being a guest today. I'm just so excited to meet you today. And I want to thank all of the listeners as well. And until next time, you all take care.
Thank you very much.